My name is Ivy Mitchell. I'm 32, and I thought I had life figured out. I live with a man I love. We've built 3 years together, and I thought nothing could shake the calm of our world until one message changed everything. The morning light filtered through the sheer curtains of our apartment, casting long golden lines across the hardwood floor. I sat on the edge of the couch, knees tucked under my chin, watching Paul move around the kitchen with effortless familiarity. He made coffee the way he always did, slow, deliberate, savoring the little rituals, and I couldn't help but smile. 3 years. 3 years of shared mornings, late-night talks, and quiet routines. I thought I knew every crease of his smile, every way he frowned when concentrating, every subtle habit that made him him. Then his phone buzzed. I froze mid-step. Something in the way his shoulders stiffened, the brief pause in his movement, told me that this wasn't ordinary. He glanced at the screen, and for the first time in months, I saw a flicker of unease. "Everything okay?" I asked, forcing my voice to sound casual, even though my stomach twisted. He hesitated, biting his lip. "Yeah, just a message from Natalie." The name hit me like ice water. Natalie. Paul's ex. The one who walked away 5 years ago to chase her own ambitions, leaving him behind. I remembered him talking about her in the past tense, voice tinged with both sadness and relief. Until now. "What does she want?" I asked quietly, my voice betraying the smallest tremor. He swallowed hard, staring at the phone like it might offer an answer. "She wants to meet. She says she's been thinking about me, that I was the one she let go of." My heart sank. The one she let go of. A phrase meant for nostalgia, for memory, but here it was, threatening to rewrite the present. "Closure," he murmured, almost to himself. "Maybe I need to see her, to understand." I laughed bitterly, a short, sharp sound that surprised even me. Closure? After 3 years with me? While living under the same roof? He sank onto the couch across from me, looking smaller, hesitant, like a man caught between worlds. "Ivy, it's not like that. I cut him off, words spilling out before I could stop them. "You just want to throw away everything we've built because someone from your past decided to knock on your door? Do you know how that feels?" He reached for my hand instinctively, but I pulled away. My mind raced. All the nights I supported him, celebrated his small victories, cared for him through ups and downs. It was a tapestry of trust he was threatening to unravel. I needed to think. I needed to breathe. I needed to remember who I was beyond his indecision. "Follow your heart," I said quietly, steady despite the whirlwind inside me. He blinked, surprised. "That's it? You're not upset? You're not going to fight for me?" I leaned back, letting the sunlight wash over me. I'm fighting. For myself. I can't stay in a waiting room for your heart to decide. You've made your choice, or at least you're about to. I just won't be a placeholder." He opened his mouth, then closed it. I could see guilt, regret, and the faint flicker of longing, but also the pull of the past. Later that night, I lay on the bed, staring at the ceiling, my laptop on my knees. The quiet apartment felt heavy, the walls too close, the air thick with tension. I thought about Natalie, the bright charm, the history they shared, and I thought about me, the years of loyalty, patience, and unwavering love. And somewhere in the mix, I realized I needed to make a choice, too, not out of revenge, not out of spite, but to reclaim control over my life. The sun had long set when Paul's phone buzzed again. I didn't see the message, but I felt it, the pulse of it, the choice looming. The chessboard had been set, and now it was up to both of us to move. I took a deep breath and whispered to myself, "Whatever happens, I answer on my own terms. I'm done waiting for someone else to decide my worth." And just like that, everything changed. The next evening, the apartment smelled faintly of rosemary and roasted coffee beans, a comfort I clung to while Paul paced back and forth, phone in hand, texting Natalie again. I watched him from the kitchen doorway, noting the subtle tension in his shoulders, the way his jaw clenched when he read her words. I knew I had to act, not with anger or confrontation, but with precision. I thought about Paul's close friend, Max, someone who had quietly been there for both of us, reliable, steady, unflinching, someone who could remind him, without me having to say a word, what loyalty and love looked like. I picked up my phone and sent a casual message. "Max, free for dinner tonight? Just to catch up. Nothing serious." I hesitated for a heartbeat, considering how this could be perceived, but the knot in my stomach told me it wasn't manipulation, it was necessary. I needed to set the emotional chessboard in motion. Paul glanced up, catching me staring. "Who are you texting?" "Just Max. He's been wanting to see me," I said, calm, almost indifferent. "Dinner. Just the two of us." He didn't look threatened yet, but I could see curiosity flicker in his eyes, a tiny spark of unease. By the time Max arrived, I was already seated at our usual spot at Rosemary's, the restaurant Paul loved most. The warm amber glow of hanging lights reflected off the polished wood tables. Monica, our waitress, approached, eyebrows slightly raised at seeing Max instead of Paul. "Not tonight?" she asked, glancing around. "Not tonight," I said lightly. "Just us." Max slid into the seat across from me, a grin tugging at his lips. "You look good. Happy, I mean." I smiled, but it didn't reach my eyes. "Happy enough, just enjoying a calm evening." My fingers traced the rim of my wine glass, careful to keep the tremor of anticipation under control. Halfway through the appetizers, I noticed Paul's phone light up again. He had been texting Natalie for the better part of the evening. I allowed myself a small, almost imperceptible smirk. Timing, I thought. Everything is about timing. The conversation with Max flowed easily, genuine, warm, free of the tension that had been suffocating me at home. He laughed at the same jokes I always did, leaned in when I spoke, and asked questions that showed he actually cared. For a fleeting moment, I felt the weight lift, replaced by clarity. Clarity that Paul had taken for granted. My phone buzzed. I glanced down. A message from Paul. "Do you know about Natalie?" My chest tightened. He suspected something. Or maybe he already felt the shift. I typed a calm reply. "I know more than you think. I'm not passive, Paul. Choices have consequences." I put the phone down, letting Max continue talking, noticing the way he listened, really listened. And I realized the difference between him and Paul wasn't just loyalty or timing, it was intention. Max's presence reminded me that some people stay when others falter. Dinner ended with the soft clink of cutlery and the low hum of conversation around us. Outside, the city was quiet, streets slick with recent rain, lights reflecting like scattered jewels. I walked Max to the car, each step measured, deliberate. I could feel the subtle shift. Something had begun, something Paul would feel, even if he didn't yet understand. When I returned to the apartment, Paul was still there, pacing, phone in hand. His eyes met mine, a storm of frustration, guilt, and curiosity swirling within them. "You were out with Max?" he asked. "Yes," I said simply, closing the door behind me. "Dinner. He wanted to see me." "Just dinner?" His voice was sharp, almost questioning. "Just dinner," I echoed, calm and steady. But inside, my mind raced. The tension between us had thickened, and the game had begun. I didn't need to shout or cry. The silence, the precision, the way I carried myself, it was enough to plant doubt. I went to the kitchen, poured a glass of water, and leaned against the counter, watching Paul. He was trying to appear indifferent, but the twitch of his jaw betrayed him. I thought about all the small moments he had taken for granted, every laugh, every late-night text I sent him, every little effort I'd made to make our life together seamless. And I understood something. Love wasn't just about the grand gestures. It was about consistency, respect, and choice. And he had chosen to test it. I walked over to him, close enough to make the point without touching. "Paul," I said softly, but my voice carried weight. "I'm not here to compete with your past. I'm here to remind you of your present. And if you can't see that, then maybe I'm the one who needs to make a choice." He swallowed, words caught in his throat. The apartment was silent, except for the low hum of the refrigerator. I could see him weighing options, seeing consequences, feeling the first tremor of the storm he'd helped create. That night, I lay awake in our shared bed, staring at the ceiling, feeling a strange sense of empowerment amid the heartbreak. The past had knocked. I had answered, not with tears, not with pleading, but with precision. And now the game was officially on. I didn't know exactly what would happen next, but I knew one thing. I was no longer just a bystander. I had set my pieces, and Paul was about to see what he stood to lose. Some lessons need to be learned the hard way. A week had passed since the dinner with Max. The tension in our apartment was like static electricity, prickling at my skin every time Paul moved or laughed at his phone. He tried to act normal, making coffee, folding laundry, casual touches, but I could feel the distance growing, the invisible wedge of Natalie's presence creeping into our life. It was a Thursday afternoon when I came home early from work, deciding on a whim to surprise him. The smell of rain-damp concrete and warm air greeted me as I stepped inside, and then I saw them. Natalie, leaning too close to Paul, her hand brushing his arm as he laughed. Really laughed, like he had forgotten how to look at me that way. My chest tightened, throat dry. The apartment felt suddenly smaller, the light dimmer, the hum of the refrigerator like a distant alarm. I didn't scream, I didn't shout, I didn't move. I just stood there, silent, letting the scene unfold in slow motion. The smell of her perfume, the slight tilt of his head toward her, the way he didn't even glance at me. Every detail cut sharper than any words could. Finally, I spoke. Paul. My voice was low, steady, but each syllable carried the weight of 3 years of loyalty and love. He startled, eyes widening, the warm laugh on his lips dying midair. Ivy, I held up a hand. Don't. Just don't. Natalie turned, a quick, startled smile on her face, the kind that tried to charm its way out of guilt. Oh, Ivy, hi. I stepped fully into the room, calm on the outside, a storm inside. Hi, I said evenly. I see you two have a lot of catching up to do. Her smile faltered slightly. It's just, I wanted to... Save it, I cut in, sharper this time. I'm not here to watch. I've been quiet, I've been patient, I've been the woman who stayed while you explored your closure. But enough is enough. Paul ran a hand through his hair, guilt and hesitation flickering across his features. Ivy, it's not like that. I shook my head. It is like that. You're sitting here, choosing her attention over the 3 years we've built. You're testing boundaries that never should have been tested, and I won't be complicit in this. Natalie's voice tried to break in, sweet, persuasive. I think maybe I made a mistake leaving you. I looked at her, really looked. Saw the calculation behind the charm, the self-interest hiding behind her laughter. No, Natalie, this isn't about what you want. This is about him, and he's choosing. Paul flinched. Ivy, I'm still figuring things out. I took a step closer, calm but lethal with conviction. No, you're choosing her or you're choosing me. And if you can't see the difference, then maybe the apartment, this life, me, none of it is yours to decide anymore. The air was thick, charged. Outside, the city noise seemed to fade, leaving only the tension inside the room. Every tick of the clock echoed like a drumbeat of consequence. And then I made my decision. You need to leave if you choose her, I said, voice soft but absolute. Tonight, or tomorrow. I won't ask again. Paul's face paled. He looked at Natalie, then back at me, indecision written across every line of his face. He had always been decisive, always been sure of what he wanted, until now. Natalie's shoulders stiffened. We can figure something out. I raised a hand. No, you've had your fun. Now leave, all of you. This is my home, and I will not watch it be taken for granted. The room fell silent, heavy with shock and disbelief. I could see Paul's internal battle, the tug-of-war between desire and responsibility. But I didn't flinch. I stood tall, letting the weight of my presence, my certainty, and my hurt press upon him. He finally nodded, defeated, and left the room. Natalie followed, her eyes darting back at me, a flicker of something unspoken, envy, perhaps, or recognition that I wasn't a woman to be trifled with. I closed the door behind them and leaned against it, breathing hard, heart racing. I felt every tear I didn't shed, every scream I didn't release, every piece of betrayal, and beneath it all, a strange clarity began to bloom. I wasn't just the woman standing in that apartment. I was the woman reclaiming it. I was the woman reclaiming herself. For the first time, I understood that love wasn't just about patience or forgiveness or staying through uncertainty. Love, my love, was about knowing my worth and refusing to let anyone, no matter how much I loved them, erode it. And for Paul, for Natalie, for everyone who thought I would quietly let them dismantle what I'd built, the message was clear. I am not to be underestimated. I walked to the window, watching the city below, rain-slick streets reflecting neon lights. The storm outside mirrored the one inside me, chaotic yet cleansing. I clenched my fists, whispering to myself, whatever happens next, I won't be the same, and they'll know it. Some lessons are learned the hard way, and some of us are the hardest teachers. The apartment felt quieter than usual the morning after the confrontation. Rain still streaked the windows, a soft drumbeat echoing the turmoil inside me. Paul had left with Natalie the night before, but the emptiness he left behind wasn't peaceful. It was heavy, oppressive, charged with all the words unsaid and all the betrayals felt. I sat at the kitchen table, coffee cooling in my mug, staring at the steam that had long since stopped rising. The reality of what I had done, the confrontation, the ultimatum, was settling in. I hadn't yelled, hadn't cried, hadn't begged, but I had made my stance clear. I wasn't a placeholder, and I wouldn't be taken for granted. The text messages started arriving mid-morning. Paul's voice, desperate and pleading in digital form. Ivy, I didn't mean for it to go this far. I was confused. I read them once, twice, then deleted. There was no argument left to have. Words were insufficient. Actions were what mattered. And his actions had spoken louder than any text could convey. Then came Natalie's messages, the same combination of charm and entitlement she always wielded. Ivy, I don't want to fight. I want him back. You can't stop love. I smiled faintly, bitter. Love doesn't look like abandoning someone while still living with them. Love doesn't need manipulation to exist. I poured myself a fresh cup of coffee and walked to the living room, letting my gaze fall on the scattered remnants of our life together. Photos, books, small mementos, all tangible proof of my devotion. And now all of it seemed heavier, charged with the energy of betrayal. I knew I couldn't stay passive, not for myself, not for anyone who might think it was acceptable to toy with my heart. I drafted an email to Paul. You've made your choices. You've tested the boundaries of my patience and my love. This apartment, this life, these 3 years, they were not yours to gamble. Consider this notice. Any attempt to continue manipulations, any attempts to reconcile without clear respect and accountability will not be entertained. You've been given the truth. Now live with the consequences. I didn't send it immediately. I reread it, feeling the satisfaction of words that were precise, truthful, and unavoidable. Eventually, I pressed send, the click echoing in the quiet apartment like a verdict. Hours later, my phone buzzed again. This time it was Max. Coffee? The message read. Simple, direct. I smiled. Max had been steady through the storm, an anchor in a sea of chaos. I replied, yes, you know the place. By mid-afternoon, we were seated in the small cafe we both loved, the smell of roasted beans comforting, grounding. Max didn't ask questions about Paul or Natalie. He simply listened when I spoke, laughed when I shared memories, and gave the kind of companionship that didn't come with strings attached. It was in that quiet, mundane way that I realized life could continue, life could be steady, life could be mine, without manipulation, without betrayal. That evening, Paul called. He sounded hollow, defeated. Ivy, can we talk? He asked. I let the silence stretch for a beat before responding. We already did, Paul. The conversation was clear. I won't change my mind. You've chosen, and now you have to live with that choice. There was a pause. Then, I didn't realize. You realized too late, I said softly. I gave you every chance to show loyalty, and you didn't. Don't make excuses. Don't try to rewrite the past. It's gone. What remains is what we do now. I hung up, and for the first time in weeks, I felt a weight lift. Not lightness exactly, but the clarity of finality. The days that followed were quiet but intense. Paul reached out multiple times, but I remained firm. Natalie tried her manipulations, but I didn't respond. I focused on myself, work, friends, Max, and the steady reconstruction of my life without uncertainty lurking at every corner. And slowly, I noticed something remarkable. The apartment that had felt oppressive and charged with tension began to feel like home again. The city outside still hummed with chaos, but inside I found calm. My boundaries, once tested, were now reinforced. My heart, once uncertain, had been claimed back. I realized then that the most powerful form of love isn't compromise, it's recognition of your own value and the courage to demand respect, even when it hurts. Paul eventually stopped reaching out. Natalie faded into her own world, realizing perhaps too late that manipulation couldn't replace genuine connection. And I continued to move forward, stronger, clearer, and more certain than ever before. That chapter wasn't just about betrayal or heartbreak. It was about discovering who I truly was when tested. And Ivy Mitchell, 32, wasn't about to be anyone's fallback, anyone's second choice, or anyone's pawn. Some doors close sharply, some storms pass slowly, but the lessons stay, and the person you become in the aftermath is unstoppable. Weeks had passed since Paul and Natalie had vanished from my life. Their absence, once a jagged wound, had softened into clarity. I no longer felt the sharp sting of betrayal or the restless ache of uncertainty. Instead, there was calm, a quiet, undeniable power in knowing I had protected my heart and my home. The apartment smelled of fresh flowers and baking bread, a small indulgence I allowed myself as a celebration of reclaiming control. I moved from room to room, taking stock of the life I had rebuilt. My favorite books lined the shelves, candles flickered in their corners, and small notes of intention reminded me daily that I was my own anchor. Max arrived that evening, bringing his usual warmth and a bottle of wine. His presence was easy, steady, free of hidden agendas. We sat on the balcony, city lights twinkling below us, and for the first time in months, I felt genuinely light. "You've changed," he said quietly, watching me. Not in a bad way. Stronger, sharper, clearer. I smiled, feeling the truth of it. I had to. Some people teach you lessons, but you're the one who decides whether to learn or break. I chose to learn. He raised his glass, and I clinked mine against his. "To learning," I said softly, the words carrying weight. "To boundaries, to moving forward without fear." The nights that followed were calm but deliberate. I filled them with friends, laughter, and small adventures, things Paul had taken for granted while lost in the pull of the past. I went to art exhibits, small concerts, and long walks along the riverside, each step a declaration of life reclaimed. Then came the small, unexpected moments that cemented my sense of empowerment. An email from a work client praising my initiative. A handwritten note from a friend I hadn't seen in months. Even the city itself seemed kinder, the streets familiar and welcoming, in a way they hadn't when betrayal had shadowed my days. I thought of Paul only occasionally, never with longing, only with reflection. He had made his choices, Natalie had faded, and I had risen. I realized, with a quiet pride, that some relationships don't need closure in conversation. They need closure in action. I had created that for myself. One evening, I stood on the balcony, glass of wine in hand, city lights reflecting in my eyes. Max joined me, leaning lightly against the railing. "You okay?" he asked, voice gentle. "I'm more than okay," I said, letting the words roll off my tongue. "I'm alive, I'm whole, and I'm finally free to choose my happiness without waiting for anyone else to decide it for me." He smiled, understanding more than words could express. "And you're not alone. I'll be here, steady. No games, no tests. Just support." I laughed softly, the sound full of release. That's exactly what I need. In that moment, the apartment felt truly like home again. Not because of the walls or furniture, but because it was a space I had claimed for myself. No past love, no betrayal, no manipulations could touch it anymore. Some nights, when the city lights blurred into the distance, I still thought of Paul. But the thought no longer carried weight. It was a reminder of how far I had come, not a tether to pain, but a measure of growth. I realized then that life wasn't about waiting for others to choose you. It was about choosing yourself, over and over, with courage, clarity, and unwavering conviction. And in choosing myself, I had found freedom, strength, and an unexpected sense of joy. Max poured another glass of wine, and we watched the world glow beneath us. I felt it fully. The lessons learned, the storms weathered, the boundaries firmly drawn. I had loved, I had been tested, and now I was unstoppable. "My name is Ivy Mitchell," I whispered to the night, a smile tugging at my lips. "I am enough, I am whole, and this is only the beginning." The future stretched ahead, uncertain yet exhilarating. But I was ready, and for the first time, I wasn't afraid.